So I'm bringing you and dissecting a conversation between an MSNBC host, warning, 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 and Henry Rogers, aka Ibrim X Kendi. And this is with regards to a video that I made earlier with Vivek Ramaswamy on CNN, and he was defending the fact that he compared the rhetoric of the left of Ibrim X Kendi to the Grand Wizards of the KKK, and that they would be proud and agree with the rhetoric. So, of course, MSNBC is defending Henry Rogers and attacking Vivek. What I'm trying to do by doing this is to fully expose the rot that is the mainstream media, these horrendous leftist racists, in order that the apparatus falls apart even more quickly than it already is. I have great deals of contempt for such people, but I found this conversation amusing, and I hope that you guys do too.
Ibrim, you and I have had lots of opportunities to talk. I didn't think this would be one of them, where I'm inviting you on air to disavow whether or not you have any affiliations or connections with the KKK. So let's just take the portion of your book that Vivek Ramaswamy quoted. It reads as following: "The remedy for past discrimination is present discrimination. The remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination." End quote. This is from your book. Ramaswamy says that's racism.
Of course it's racism. It's the very definition of it. You are actively discriminating against somebody because in the past you felt that your tribe was treated unfairly, and thus the same should go forward into the future. It's kind of like pay it forward, but with evil. It's the exact opposite, the antithesis of Gandhi's "an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind." Kendi wants to blind those who he believed wronged his ancestors, even though nobody alive today experienced slavery in the United States, at least. Maybe still in Africa, but he's not going to handle that.
Explain.
Well, in the book, actually, I define discrimination, and I go to great lengths talking about a scenario in which, for instance, during the COVID 2020, during the COVID pandemic, it was important for us to provide vaccine first for elderly people because they were the most likely to be dying as a result of COVID-19. That can be described as age discrimination, but it actually was an equitable policy that saved lives. And similarly, when Black people are deprived and have been deprived for centuries of rights and resources, how else are we going to create equity?
How else are we going to do it but to discriminate against white people and Asians? They're doing better than us. Thus, we should have discrimination. This guy's a moral genius.
If not providing specific resources and rights to them. But of course, that's described as racism, which to me is very different.
It's very different because it's helping my tribe. But of course, if it was done to you, it would be immediately racism.
Then depriving people of rights, which is the problem we were talking about to begin with.
What you describe in many cases is the affirmative action that many Republicans have now taken to calling reverse discrimination. Obviously, you've written books on this, so there's always context. It becomes very easy for people like Vivek Ramaswamy and others, he's certainly not the first Republican to do this, to take those words out of context. What do you do about that?
How is that out of context? Even in this interview, he's still defending. How else are we going to do it if we don't discriminate against whitey? That's essentially what he said. Just leave it in the comments if you think that I'm wrong.
You've been writing about this for a really long time. You're actually an expert on this particular topic. How do you deal with the fact that somebody just slings this comment? Really, it's a slur, calling you akin to a grand wizard of the KKK.
But I'll tell you what's not a slur: when you call everybody else, like Donald Trump, literally a Nazi, or those who support him Nazis or racists. Everybody but you is a racist. You get away with it because you're Black.
Well, I mean, as a scholar,
his SAT scores in high school were 1,000.
All I can do is set the record straight and set the truth straight. And the fact of the matter is that the modern Klan actually hates me. And you know who the modern Klan loves? the very candidate that Vivek praises every chance he gets, and that's Donald Trump, who, of course, described modern white supremacists as very fine people who.
Once again, this is a complete lie that we know. Trump immediately disavowed it. There's a link right there where I broke it down. He said there were fine people on both sides, and then moments later.
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
Lies. Everything out of this man's mouth is a lie.
Told them to stand back and stand by, who did nothing as they recruited or as they recruit white teens online, who has done nothing as they terrorize and murder people of color and Jews and Muslims and women. But Vivek is praising Trump.
You'll know how they always go to the boogeyman of left, who's going to raise the blood pressure of anybody out there who's been watching and been hypnotized by MSNBC. Trump, 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 Trump. Do that and you can defend yourself versus a murder charge, versus pedophilia, which is what some of them are trying to do right now. It's a very sad moment, but this is the hypnotization of the MSNBC viewer. I want to bring you that to your attention. That which they shield themselves with, that orange man shield.
Even though he is the one who has made grand wizards of the Ku Klux Klan of old proud, and who are being supported by current grand wizards of the Ku Klux Klan.
Ibrim, Ramaswamy doubled down on his comments after the town hall. He said, quote, "The fact that we're taught to see each other on the basis of our genetic attributes is something that would make the old wizards of the KKK proud." Tell me a little about this. This is another sort of oversimplification of a concept. He's saying the idea that people are talked about as black or white creates confusion and is part of the problem.
Well, the fact of the matter is how do we eliminate racism? How do we eliminate racial disparities and inequities where Black people are more likely to die at the hands of police violence, be impoverished, be incarcerated?
If you want to distinguish based on race, then how about telling all the Black folk not to commit crime? 13% of the population, 52% of the murders. Now call me a white nationalist for stating this FBI statistic. Believe me, it's happened.
Die from heart disease and cancer if we don't talk about race, if we don't identify by race, and so that's the fact of the matter. And they want to eliminate conversations about race so that they can hide racism. And if you hide racism,
no, there's no hiding it. It's right out in the open with you.
Then they're able to hide their policies that are actually causing those disparities and inequities. Or in the case of Vivek, the person, again, he continues to praise Donald Trump, his role in maintaining those inequities.
I'm sure you're not really all that interested in having a debate with Vivek Ramaswamy, but I would really enjoy listening to you debunk some of those ridiculous arguments. Ibrim, good to see you again. We can have a lot more conversation on this, and we will. We always have, so I appreciate your time.
Kendi would never debate Vivek because Vivek is a million times smarter than him, much more articulate. He wouldn't debate Coleman Hughes, who is an up-and-coming Black thinker who I very much enjoy listening to, even though he's slightly on the left. Cool. At least your ideas are decent. But once again, they hide behind Trump. It's like the cross. It just galvanizes the minds of the leftists that are hooked into the MSNBC propaganda machine. All this is propaganda meant to take out Vivek, meant that Black leftists are allowed to be complete and total racists. And that is what's causing the division in our country that I hope that we are able to heal, because I doubt that anybody over the age of 30 years old felt that during their childhoods, experienced much of it. And I'm not saying that there wasn't any of it, but there wasn't much. And there's much, much more now, thanks to people like Kendi and those MSNBC shills that preach and allow the amplification of their racist beliefs.